So I'd like to welcome everybody here this morning as we kick off the celebration of the 200th anniversary of the signing of the charter for Utica Commandery No. 3 Knights Templar of the state of New York. My name is Dennis Davis. I'm the Captain General of Utica Commandery this current year. I'm actually here representing our commander, Stuart W. Card, who could not be present. He's out of town. I would like to at least recognize the invited guests we have here this morning. Start on my right with County Executive Anthony J. Picente. A couple of representatives from the Canal Corporation, which was directly tied into the expansion of masonry in the state of New York. We have Rebecca Hughes, the Deputy Director, and Jackie Schillinger. Thank you. From the New Hartford Historical Society, Mary Hayes Gordon. And from the Oneida County History Center, Rebecca McLean. The Grand Encampment of New York was chartered in 1814, excuse me. That was, now it's called the Grand Commandery of New York. The first New York encampment, which is now called a commandery, was chartered in 1816. It is now Columbian Commandery No. 1 in New York City. Utica Encampment No. 3 was chartered on February 8th, 1823, 200 years ago today. That charter was signed by Governor Sir Knight and Grand Master of Masons in the state of New York, DeWitt Clinton. Temple Encampment No. 2 in Albany was chartered 10 days later on February 18th, 1823. So Sir Knight Clinton served as the Grand Commander of Knights Templar New York State from 1814 until 1827. He was Grand Master of the Grand Encampment of the United States of America from 1816 to 1828. Sir Knight Ezra S. Cozier was Grand Commander of New York State from 1829 until 1832. He was a charter member of Utica Commandery No. 3. He was also the Deputy Grand Master of the Grand Encampment in 1829. Utica's history shows that there were 6 Sir Knights of Utica Commandery No. 3 that served as Grand Commander of the Grand Commandery of the state of New York. In 1820, the census showed that the population in the county of Oneida was 50,997. The town of Paris was the largest town at that time at 6,707. Oneida County was chartered in 1798, and the last significant change in the area of Oneida County was in 1816. At this time, I'd like to invite the county executive for a few words.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, and thank you. And it's my great pleasure and honor to be with all of you this morning, and certainly the Knights Templar, which is a major piece of the history of Oneida County and the city of Utica, as you heard from Captain Davis here, who, and along with the other Knights that are joining us today, continue to provide, the community services and so much of a benefit to what we call our home here in Oneida County. Dennis mentioned that 1798 Oneida County was chartered. This year, as the Knights Templar celebrates 200 years of existence, Oneida County celebrates 225 years. I mean, it is our 225th anniversary of the County of Oneida, which is very important to me in my role, but also in the history of this county. And being the history, we talk about this all the time, whether it's Rebecca or others or Mary. I'm a big history buff when it comes to all things, and especially Oneida County. And the history that is in this room alone is something that needs to be celebrated, but also recognized. And when you look at the names of those that established this organization here at that time of Commandery number 3, I mean, Thomas R. Proctor, DeWitt Clinton, the governor who ultimately, and you're going to hear, built the Erie Canal. I mean, the history of this community, of this county, and what it meant in those days and continues to mean today, I'm very proud of. So I'm very proud to be here today and be able to celebrate this with the Knights. And I know there's more things to talk about. This magnificent building, which still represents the Masonic temple of this community, and all that the Masons have done in terms of providing assistance, providing care, providing community assets, and the amount of public service that is given by these individuals is something to celebrate as well as we celebrate 200 years. And so with that, I'm very proud, as county executive, to be able to be here with you and to recognize this, but also recognize, that the work continues. The service, community service, is very important. It's important for all of us to be a part of, and it's important to recognize this organization that has meant 200 years, and that's an amazing amount of service. Amazing amount of service in this community, and that we can celebrate it actually on the exact date of February 8th from 1823, I think is really significant. We don't often get that opportunity to celebrate milestones on the exact day, other than birthdays, which some of us try to forget. But in this case, 200 years and 200 years of service. And I'm sure that you could probably fill this room and then some with documents and reports of all of the things that this commandery has done over the years for this community and beyond, because it's not just about what happens here, it's about everything that happens, throughout. And so, again, proud day for this community, proud day for the city of Utica, proud day for the county of Oneida, and the state of New York, recognizing 200 years of service. One of the great things I get to do, the nice things, is to proclaim these days and look at them and recognize that there is a place in history. It's our little mark of history that we can do as a county to recognize and proclaim. And so with that, without reading the entire, because you've heard the history from Dennis and what today is all about, but I'm proud to proclaim February 8th, 2023 as Utica Masonic Hall Day in Oneida County, and I urge all of our county residents to join me in honoring the Utica Commandery of the Knights Templar. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. So, as we move forward, we'll talk about the city of Utica. It also was chartered in 1798 as a village. It was chartered as a city, according to my records that I found, in 1832. The population in the 1820 census of Utica was 2,972. I had mentioned earlier about Ezra S. Cozier as the Deputy Grand Master of Grand Encampment and a Grand Commander of the state of New York. He was also, at that time, it was called President of the village of Utica. I believe that was in 1827. I haven't been able to verify that. The Erie Canal. Governor Clinton had this dream. There was a difficult task for him to get approved through the legislature, and it was building the Erie Canal from Buffalo to Albany. It started right here in Oneida County, 1817. Closer to Rome, I believe, than Utica, but it was in this general vicinity, and it went both east and west. With the construction of the canal, New York grew. We grew from the east to the west, and with that, so did masonry. And so many of those leaders of our societies were also leaders in all the different Masonic groups that sprung up along the growth of that canal. Our grand historian, Ronald Brown, is putting together a presentation on the growth of masonry with the canal that I hope to have able to be presented at the April 22nd rededication of the Knights Templar Utica Commandery. At this time, I would like to invite Rebecca Hughes, the Deputy Director of the Canal Corp, for a few words.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Rebecca Hughes. I'm the Deputy Director of the New York State Canal Corporation. I'm honored to be here this morning. Thank you very much for welcoming the Canal Corporation to this celebration. Given so much of our shared history and our deep roots in Oneida County, it's very meaningful to be here today as the canal approaches its 200th consecutive season of operation across New York State. In addition to sharing these deep roots with DeWitt Clinton and ties to the Mohawk Valley and Oneida County, I'm also pleased to share with you a very personal connection between the Masons and the canal that are deep in my own genealogy. So when I joined Canal Corporation about 2 years ago, my great aunt Janet said, "You know, you have an ancestor who worked at the canal." And that spurred for me a personal research journey that uncovered the history of my 3 times great-grandfather, Eugene Gorham. So what I discovered is that Captain Gorham first boarded the SS Ganges in Boston, headed for the East Indies, at the age of 13 years old. He spent the vast majority of his life at sea, captaining merchant vessels and also serving in the Civil War, before ultimately landing in Frankfort, New York, which was ultimately his retirement home where he raised his family. And as I looked back at those historic records, there was a headline in the local paper that read, "Those who got the plums," the plum jobs. We are in recruiting season. There's still plum jobs. We welcome folks to the Canal Corporation. And at that time, around 1903, jobs with the canal were very honorable. They were highly competitive. It was something that people really prided themselves on, being tied to that history of commerce and industrialization. So for my great-great-great-grandfather, I like to think that this was a way for him to come back to the things that he loved throughout his life, to be closer to commercial shipping, to vessels, to life at sea. And another piece of my research also uncovered that he was deeply involved with the Masonic Temple. So the Olive Branch Lodge provided a lot of the record keeping that helped to inform the story that I've since uncovered. And it was his tie to the Masons and that esteemed leadership position in his community that ultimately gave him the network and connections to establish this job at the canal. He ultimately worked at the canal until he passed away in 1914 at the age of 71. Just before the canal, the barge canal was introduced. So it was a particular era in canal history that I think is really harkens back to the long history of the canal across the Mohawk Valley. He worked at Lock 45, and I recently visited there behind the DPW. You can still see the flagstones that were the crest of that lock at Lock 45, and the remnants of the aqueduct that was immediately adjacent. So I'm pleased to be here in my role as a leader within the Canal Corporation, but also because of my family's history. So thank you very much for letting me be a part of today.
Thank you, Rebecca. You know, I think my wife's grandfather was a member of Olive Branch Lodge. They may have broke bread together. At this time, I would like to invite Mary Hayes Gordon up to discuss the Sanger gavel. One of the things that I think is important is that the charter that DeWitt Clinton signed was signed at Richard Sanger's residence.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting us here today. I'm here, as he said, representing the New Hartford Historical Society, and I'm really happy to be here to display and show today. This is the Sanger gavel. One of the very interesting things about this gavel is that the stone, the masons, the stone that this gavel is made of came from King Solomon's quarry in Israel. So they put a lot of thought and attention into creating this gavel. And I do believe that there are very few actual stone gavels, and this is not the type of thing that survives many years, many centuries. So having this available was a very special thing to be able to include. So as he said, Richard Sanger signed the original charter for this particular commandery, and he was the first commander of the Utica Commandery number 3. The Sangers are the people who first settled here in the New Hartford area, and Jedediah Sanger, the original Sanger who settled, and his children were very active in this community and in the Masons. So the New Hartford Historical Society likes to extend our best congratulations to the Utica Commandery number 3 Knights Templar, State of New York, on your 200th anniversary.
Thank you, Mary Hayes. At this time, I would like to invite Rebecca McLean from the Oneida County History Center.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. Just as everyone else said, thank you for inviting us today. We are really excited to be part of this anniversary in commemoration for the Knights Templar. And I'll just say, I'll be honest, I was clueless. I had heard of the Knights Templar and the Masonic Order, and as I look out on the audience, there are people I have in my daily life who are members that I now know. So this is a great learning experience, not only for me, but for the History Center. As Tony said, and everyone else, there's such a rich history here in Oneida County. There's always something, I say, to rediscover or uncover in our archives. And so I'm absolutely not an expert, but today I'm going to share a little bit about Thomas Redfield Proctor, and we brought his sword that he used when he was a member of, I believe, I'm going to look at my notes here, but I think Utica Commandery number 3, Knights Templar. And so one thing I noticed when learning about the Knights Templar and the Masonic Order in general is that one of its goals is for the organization to improve its members and to improve the surrounding community. And so this sword that sits over there represents an individual who exemplifies this goal, this trying to achieve, trying to always improve ourselves. And his accomplishments are many, right, and very far-ranging, so I absolutely cannot cover them all, but I'm just going to mention a few for you today. So Thomas Redfield Proctor was born May 25th, 1844 in Proctorsville, Vermont. It was a town founded by his great-grandfather and Revolutionary War veteran, Leonard Proctor. Thomas attended school in Boston and served in the United States Navy as a paymaster's clerk aboard the Brandywine of the North Atlantic Squadron, and later became secretary to Admiral Pearson of the Pacific Squadron aboard the Lancaster. After his naval career, he moved to Utica in 1869. Here he operated several hotels in the region, including Baggs Hotel, and quickly became one of its most prominent citizens. So just a few quick things here. So Thomas was an important member of the Republican Party and delegate to its National Convention in 1908, 1916, and 1920. His influence helped bring about the nomination of Utica native James Schoolcraft Sherman, who became Vice President of the United States. He served as one of the New York commissioners for the World's Fair at Paris in 1900 and was a member of the Board of Visitors of the Naval Academy at Annapolis, appointed by President Taft in 1910. He was a senior warden of a Grace Episcopal Church in Utica, and as I mentioned, a member and trustee of Utica Commandery No. 3 Knights Templar. I forgot to mention too, he was instrumental in bringing about the erection and the construction of the Masonic home in Utica. So that's one of the pillars of our community today, another piece of our history that's really entrenched and tied to the Masons. He was also a member of and supporter of numerous educational, historical, and social organizations, including what is today the Oneida County History Center. So he served as president, I don't have the date for you, but at some point during his tenure as well. And it's not just Thomas Proctor, but his entire family contributed to our city's and county history. So his family, including his wife Mariah Watson Williams, brother Frederick Proctor, and sister-in-law Rachel Watson Williams, were extremely generous philanthropists who were responsible for numerous projects in Utica that we still have today. So they provided the original site for the House of the Good Shepherd, provided funding for construction of a clubhouse at Utica's Grace Church, erected a statue of Alexander Hamilton at Hamilton College. They gifted the land for the Utica Public Library, and of course, Utica's extensive park system that was designed by the Olmsted Brothers landscape architects. And as I already mentioned, many of these amenities are still here today that we can enjoy. So Proctor is just one of the many members of the Knights Templar who have shaped Utica and its surrounding communities for the better. The order has deep roots in our community and has a lasting impact on the county. We are delighted to be part of this anniversary, and we hope to continue to learn more as we collaborate for future celebrations. We don't have details yet, but we are working on developing a small exhibit that we hope to have opened by the weekend of April 22nd. So we will announce details as they unfold, and I encourage you all to come down and help us learn more about our history and the Knights Templars' history. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So while we're on the topic of the sword, the Knights Templar are actually considered a military order. So at this time, I'd like to maybe just demonstrate a few of the sword movements. Platoon, fall in. Forward, 3 steps, march. Right, face. Draw. Swords. Present. Swords. Carry. Swords. Salute. Swords. Carry. Swords. Return. Swords. With great appreciation, you are dismissed. At this point, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I would like to mention that we do have a few more events scheduled on April 22nd. As mentioned before, we will be having a rededication of the Commandery and its officers right here in this building. I believe the time is going to be at 11 o'clock. Those details have not been completely firmed up, but we'll let everyone know that. We do have the planned display with dates to be more well-defined, I believe. And we have a number of items that we're trying to figure out how to display them, which ones to pick out. As we talked earlier about some of the prominent members, we probably could have picked 100 Sir Knights of Utica Commandery to discuss today. We're hoping to maybe have a fishing tournament on the canal. Hopefully to be able to raise some proceeds to be able to donate to the Knights Templar Eye Foundation, which is extremely important to this organization. And if you're unfamiliar with it, you should check out its website and look to see what the grants that we have provided in the funding for treatments and cures, I say, for pediatric blindness. It's one of the things about Masonry. Most Masonic bodies, the concordant bodies, pick a particular charity to support. And the Knights Templar Eye Foundation is one of great renown. The Masonic Medical Care Institute at the Masonic Care Community, and right here on Bleecker Street in Utica, is world renowned for some of the research and stuff they've been doing on a number of things, but heart disease, etc. Someone is thinking about trying to plan a golf tournament. We don't have any dates on that. We will be offering a short tour of the building for anyone that has time and is interested in looking at some of the artifacts we actually have here. I would like to thank the Sir Knights that participated in the sword work, Sir Knight Louis Donato Sr., Carl Klosner, Jorge Hernandez, Brian Moore, and Frank R. Williams. Thank you, Sir Knights. At this time, I want to thank everybody for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you at some future events. Thank you.